Well, welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and delighted to have back with us today David Rubin. And he's one of our regular guests and always honored to have him with us. He's former mayor of Shiloh, Israel, the region of Samaria better known as the West Bank. He's the founder and president of Shiloh Israel Children's Fund. And let me encourage you to check that out and support what he does there. He's authored several books, and one, the groundbreaking book that really has kind of rocked everything, The Islamic Tsunami. But I've asked David to be with us today to talk about the most recent decision by our U.S. Senate not to go ahead with more sanctions against Iran. What does this mean, and what are the consequences of these actions? As you know, recently, whatever nuclear negotiations we had with Iran is completely off the table these days, and now it's full throttle ahead for uranium enrichment. So what does this mean? Well, here's a guy that can give us some good answers. Hi, David. Nice to see you, my friend. By the way, Merry Christmas. Okay, we don't have any audio on him yet. Okay, let's get that straightened out. Is he there now? David, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, there you are. Hi, David. I did all the introductions. Nice to see you, my friend.
Thank you.
Thanks for your patience. Well, listen, as you probably, like us, scratching in your head by what was supposed to be some kind of nuclear negotiations with Iran all completely fell apart, and added to the insult was now our own U.S. Senate saying no more sanctions. Supposedly that's supposed to help the negotiations. What's your take on this nonsense?
Well, the solution is to dismantle the Iranian nuclear weapons program. It's very simple. Very simple. But it's not, obviously, it's not the direction that the Obama administration has been taking. The approach that they've been taking has been that they want to negotiate with the Iranians and try to find a solution or a compromise. But you can't compromise with nuclear bombs. A nuclear bomb doesn't say, okay, we'll diminish our power and in order to destroy you less. The problem is that we have a country here, a regime in Iran that wants to destroy Israel, that wants to destroy the free world, that says so. And we have a president in the United States and other world leaders who don't seem to understand that or don't care about it, which...
Do you think, are we wasting our time trying to think that we literally can negotiate with the Iranians? I mean, it feels like to me that everything that's on the table eventually gets violated. So why even go down that road?
Well, you can negotiate with anybody, but you could also lose the negotiations. You can also come up with a very bad deal. And that's what has happened here. And this is just the interim deal that we're talking about, and it's already a horrible start. In which the Iranians are being allowed to continue to enrich uranium. Uranium enrichment, for those of your viewers who don't know, means that you are going to create a nuclear bomb. Once you get beyond 3 to 5% uranium enrichment, you're talking about nuclear weapons. So it's a very dangerous situation. And in addition to that, they're being allowed to continue to run the nuclear power plant, the heavy water reactor, in a place called Iraq, or at least that's the name of the reactor. And this is all very, very naive of the American negotiators, that they would let them continue their nuclear program and to give them billions of dollars at the same time to ease the sanctions. It just makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense if the goal is really to destroy the Iranian nuclear weapons program.
All right, so we don't have anything on the table right now. Whatever was there is gone. And why do you think the U.S. Senate is afraid to increase sanctions?
Why are they afraid to increase sanctions? Because the U.S. Senate is Democratic controlled. It's controlled by the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party's president is pressuring them heavily not to increase the sanctions, not to strengthen the sanctions. And they've caved into that. They made some public statements to try to maintain some of the pro-Israel supporters of the Democratic Party, to maintain their support. But they're caving in to the president.
All right. Is this, in your mind, some form of a surrender? I mean, just go ahead and let Iran do what it wants to do?
In practice, that's what it is. They may not say that, they may not call it that, but that's what it is. It's a surrender to an evil power.
Right.
Just as during right before World War II, when Neville Chamberlain of Great Britain, he caved in. He met with Hitler. He caved in to him. He said, we're going to try to reach a peaceful solution. We're going to have peace in our time. And it was nothing close to that. It ended up being one of the worst world wars ever. And now we're in a similar situation where the Iranians are going full speed ahead with their program. When they speak in Farsi, in their native tongue, they say that very clearly, that they are not compromising at all their nuclear program. They're going to go full speed ahead. They're going to acquire a nuclear bomb, and they're going to use it to destroy Israel, or at least to intimidate Israel and to intimidate all of the neighbors who live in the Middle East.
All right. Now, does your intelligence give you any indication how close they are in the uranium enrichment?
Well, it's just a matter of weeks. If they wanted to, they could achieve nuclear weapons capability within a matter of weeks, once they feel that they are ready to go fast forward on this. And that ability is not being affected in any way. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to immediately produce a nuclear bomb. They may prefer to continue their nuclear research, and once they're really ready to go forward, then they're going to go full speed ahead, and nobody's going to be able to stop them, because there is nothing in this agreement that stops them.
We've watched our own Secretary of State, John Kerry, and the President say that they will not allow Iran to develop nuclear weapons. Right at this point, it just seems to be hot air. What is tangible on the table that would indicate that that statement is true?
Well, I haven't seen anything on the table that says that the statement is true. This is the same Barack Obama who said, if you want your doctor, if you want to keep your doctor, you can keep your doctor. If you want to keep your insurance, you can keep your insurance. Well, he proved not to be honest on the domestic front, and sadly, he's proving also to be dishonest on the foreign front. And we who live in Israel, who live in this tiny country, which is smaller than the state of New Jersey, we cannot afford to believe such utter nonsense as this that he's been saying, and that John Kerry has been saying, that we're on our way to peace. We're on our way to a peaceful resolution of this problem. We're not even close to it.
Does Netanyahu have the support of the Knesset in opposing the president's point of view?
Well, there are those in the Knesset who are criticizing Prime Minister Netanyahu, but he has a clear majority of the country behind him. In his governing coalition, there is a wide variety of opinion, from the most conservative all the way to the most liberal, and he has not gotten any strong criticism from within the governing coalition. They're behind him. And when it comes to the issue of Iran, I think, at least based on the surveys, a clear majority of the country understands that this agreement that was signed recently by the United States, by Russia, by France, by Great Britain, and the European Union, that this agreement has brought us closer to war and closer to the necessity for Israel to take military action.
Any other countries in the surrounding area that would be in support of any kind of strike against Iran and neutralizing their nuclear capabilities?
Well, this is kind of interesting, because in my book, The Islamic Tsunami, Israel and America in the Age of Obama, was the subtitle. I spoke in the Islamic Tsunami about Shiite and Sunni Muslims, that there is an internal rivalry in the Muslim world, and even though they want, the Shiite Muslims want to lead the Islamic tsunami against the West and against Israel, and the Sunni Muslims also want to lead that Islamic tsunami against Israel and against the West. But they have an internal struggle about who is going to lead that Islamic tsunami, and that is an internal struggle that sometimes leads to war. So the Iranians, being a Shiite Muslim country, are actually very threatened by the Shiite Muslims of Iran are a great threat to the Sunni Muslims of countries like Saudi Arabia and the Persian Gulf, and that is a big problem here. The Saudis are very, very concerned, and they are even willing to cooperate with what they see as a devil, of course, which is Israel, to stop the Iranian nuclear weapons program. It's a fascinating thing that they are actually willing to cooperate with Israel.
Didn't we see a little bit of that, David, in Syria when you had the various factions fighting each other? Could that go on a regional scale where you have an insurrection at a regional level?
Oh, I think it's certainly possible. Yes, in Syria, we had some interesting relationships and cooperation, because you have to understand, Syria is basically a vassal state of Iran. The Assad government in Syria is controlled and supported by Iran, just as the Hezbollah terrorist organization is controlled and supported by Iran. So because of that, you have alliances being formed, and the Sunni Muslim countries like Saudi Arabia and Jordan and even Egypt are now cooperating with Israel quietly on the military level in terms of strategic alliances against Iran to stop Iran's nuclear race. Whether we'll all be successful, it's going to be kind of interesting. But I can guarantee you one thing: you will not hear Saudi Arabia talking about how they support Israel or stand with Israel. You would not hear them say one positive word about Israel. But secretly, they are cringing because of the Iranian threat, and they are going to cooperate with Israel if they have to.
All right, let me take a break. We'll be right back. David Rubin's with us, former mayor of Shiloh, Israel, and also the founder and president of the Shiloh Israel's Children Fund. And let me encourage you, what's that website, David, before we take a break?
ShilohIsraelChildren.org.
Okay.
That's Shiloh, S-H-I-L-O-H. ShilohIsraelChildren.org.
All right, go there and support what he does. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back, and again, we are honored to have back with us today our good friend David Rubin, former mayor of Shiloh, Israel, and also the founder of Shiloh Israel Children's Fund. You can go to ShilohIsraelChildren.org and find out what he does there and support what he does, because it helps these children and support his work. David, I want to come back to something you said earlier, just to help me get a perspective on this. We know the Saudis don't want the Iranians to have nuclear weapons. Is there a possibility with Egypt and Lebanon, if Israel was to go in, let's hypothetically say Israel goes in to take out the nuclear capabilities of Iran, what would be the response with Egypt and Lebanon?
Well, I think that Egypt would be very quiet. I don't think you would hear Egypt complain one bit if Israel went in and took out the Iranian nuclear program, or at least did serious damage to it. As far as Lebanon goes, you have to understand that Lebanon is controlled by the Hezbollah terrorist organization. They are a Shiite Islamic terrorist organization. They are a threat to most of the countries in the Middle East. So yes, you might see some reaction from Hezbollah, but only if the Israelis are not successful. So, if we go in and we launch a preemptive strike against the Iranian nuclear program and we do serious damage, and we do it quickly and massively, I don't think that Hezbollah would dare react and attack Israel. If they do, then I think they would be in big trouble.
Is it possible that the Saudis would go in and Israel would have their back?
Now, that would be an interesting development. It really would surprise me because the Saudis don't have they may have a lot of expensive American warplanes, but they don't have a tested air force, an air force that has been through a lot of frontline battle. And I think they would be nervous about it. I don't think that they would go in themselves and do it. What I could see them possibly doing would be to give Israel use of their airspace. Because Israel is a tiny country. We need to fly over certain much larger Islamic countries to get to Iran. So it wouldn't surprise me one bit if they give us the airspace. And it certainly would come as a big surprise if Saudi Arabia launched that attack on Iran with passive Israeli support. They certainly would have the element of surprise, and it could be very successful because of that. But I don't think it's going to happen. Okay,
well, I'm just kind of curious where you are on that. All right, it appears that our president and this administration has totally turned its back on Israel. And believe me, many Americans, and especially in the faith community, are deeply saddened and upset about this. But nonetheless, that leaves Israel on its own. Where do you think Israel is on the time clock of a preemptive strike with Iran?
Well, I think we're at a point now where, even though they're several weeks from developing a nuclear bomb, I don't think that they're going to go ahead with it because of the interim deal. I think that they're going to keep everything on hold at the moment. And I think that our government here in Israel is going to keep everything on hold as well for these 6 months, and just to see how things develop. And I know that Prime Minister Netanyahu doesn't want to be accused of not having given American diplomacy a chance. He's very sensitive to that. So it would not surprise me to see it going about 6 months, and perhaps a little bit before or a little bit after we could see some kind of action.
It doesn't appear, David, that John Kerry, our Secretary of State, our President, or the U.S. Senate has anything plausible in mind that would suggest a diplomacy that's got any teeth to it.
No, it's nothing serious. The truth is, up to this point, I've been skeptical about the effect of the sanctions, even up to this point before the deal. Now that they've weakened the sanctions, I think that they're very ineffective, and the only realistic possibility of stopping this nuclear program is military action. And I know people don't like to say it because it's we're in a time when military action, it doesn't have the right politically correct connotations. But the fact is that there are some times when evil has to be confronted. Mm-hmm. I wish we could be naive and, like little children, believe that everything is good in the world. It's not that way. There are bad people in the world. There are bad people that want to kill us, that want to destroy us, that want to take away our freedoms. And we have to stand up sometimes and be bold. And sometimes military action is the only way to be bold.
All right. If and when military action is taken to neutralize Iran's nuclear program, and let's say it's successful, let's say they take it out, heavily damage it, and that's the end of it, at least for a long time, what then happens to the Middle East? Who climbs to be king of the mountain at that point?
Well, I don't think that should be our major concern. I think in the Arab world there will always be different Islamic forces that are going to fight against each other to see who will lead that Islamic tsunami. I'm not worried about that. I think the important thing is to encourage stability and to defeat those and stop those who are trying to undo that stability. Iran is the most destabilizing force in the Middle East today. That regime of Ayatollahs that wants to export what they call their Islamic revolution, they are the most destabilizing force in the Middle East and in the world today. And it's time that somebody put a stop to that.
If there is an attack on Iran and the nuclear program is heavily damaged, what happens to their economy? Is it damaged as well?
Well, the economy is already damaged from the sanctions.
Yeah.
The problem is that the economy has been damaged, but the regime has not been damaged, and the nuclear research program has not been damaged. And that's the real issue here. Mm-hmm. Do we allow this evil regime to go ahead and do what they have, what they're sworn to do? And by the way, yes, I feel for the average Iranian in the street who has his economy destroyed and is suffering and probably has very difficult time finding produce and finding food in the supermarket because of the effects of the sanctions. However, most of the Iranians seem to be behind the nuclear weapons program. We don't hear from the Iranians that are against the nuclear weapons program. Mm-hmm. Yes, maybe some of them who voted for Rouhani, the current leader, maybe they wanted a more diplomatic approach towards the West. But they are all in favor of the nuclear weapons program. And if they're in favor of that nuclear weapons program, and if they support it, and if they vote for those who support it, then they're culpable as well.
What sanctions would you like to see the U.S. Senate increase?
Well, look, first of all, they can still sell oil. Iran is one of the largest oil exporting countries in the world, and they still are. So I would like to see a stop to that, a complete stop to their ability to export oil and to sell oil. And so I think that's one sanction that could be helpful.
Wow.
But again, as I said, I don't think that the sanctions regime is doing that much, and I think that military action, preemptive action by Israel or any other countries with the support or passive support of the United States of America could be very successful.
Well, David, you're an inspiration and delight. I value greatly our time together and our relationship. Let's stay in touch. And people that want to get your books and support you, what should they do?
Well, there are two ways. To get the books, they can go to davidrubinisrael.com. davidrubinisrael.com. And they can just go into the book section there. They can get the Islamic Tsunami. They can get my latest, Peace for Peace, Israel in the New Middle East. To find out about the Shiloh Israel Children's Fund, shilohisraelchildren.org.
All right. Thank you, my friend. Best to you. Let's talk again soon.
Welcome. God bless you.
God bless you. All right. We'll be right back.